Thank you.
I'll just start that over so you can have it in the thing. Hey, I'm Patty, and I've pretty much done everything you could do under the umbrella of set design and set fabrication in the movie and entertainment industry. Let me turn my ringer off. For the past 20 years. Um, More so, when I first started, I was doing like photo shoots, fashion photo shoots and stuff like that. And I was working with my friends and we would design the aesthetic of it, the tone, the color palette, all of that stuff. And we would design and build the sets for editorial shoots for magazines and fashion photo shoots and sort of like calendars and all this sort of stuff. And like actually we did a lot of like hip hop, photo shoots for hip hop groups and stuff like that. From there, I don't really do a ton of set design anymore from an aesthetic perspective. The stuff I do now is more technical. So I mostly work as a sculptor in the movie business. And when people hear sculptor, they usually think of like, a figurative sculpture or, like an alien head or something like that. But I do that stuff, but I mainly do really large scale sculptures. And we're talking like anytime you see a superhero movie, a Marvel movie, or DC, if there is an underground layer that looks like a cave and has, a mechanical instrument panel built into it, we do the cave work. And one specifically that we did a couple years ago was for a movie Black Adam. It was probably the biggest one I've ever done. I think it was 150 feet wide by 280 feet across, and it was an entire underground layer for Black Adam that was, it looked like a rock face texture. Um, so, so the design that I really do now is I work with the production designer and we figure out how the set is going to go together in a way that it can be pulled apart to help production shoot most efficiently. So if you have a set that big, um, for certain shots, you're going to want a dolly track in there. We'll have to remove sections of it to get out of the way to allow a massive amount of crew in to do it. And we have to be able to create it, to take it apart and put it back together so that it looks seamless. So that's basically the gist of what I do. I do large scale sculptures for movies and TV and like concert stages and stuff like that. And actually, right now, I'm doing a bunch of pieces for Lady Gaga for Coachella. And simultaneously, we're doing a bunch of pieces for a pop-up for Tiffany's, like Tiffany's watches that's going in New York somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, but it's these big pieces for a pop-up store. So it's anything from a movie set to a concert stage to, I think last summer Rihanna wanted a 18-foot soccer ball to because she did a crossover with Fendi, I think. And it was like a whole thing. So I never know what someone's going to call and ask me to make. They'll, can you make a 25-foot carrot? And I say, yeah, I can make that. So that's what I do. I'm a guy who does that. So instead of talking about the like the aesthetics of set design, I wanted to talk about all of the opportunities that are available under the umbrella of production design, and that includes, the design and the fabrication of that, because really it's like a big team. There's usually one superstar, which is the production designer or the set designer, and then there can be 100 people working with them. So there's a lot of opportunities underneath the production designer or the set designer. And I wanted to sort of talk about all of those things because, I mean, unless you're involved in this business, You have no idea what's there. I had no idea what's there. I had, I wouldn't have any idea how to get into it. Um, so I want to give like a brief description of how that works on a movie set. So you have um, on the top of it all is the production designer, right? And they are responsible for the look, the feel, and the tone, and the design of what's going on in each scene, and to make sure it's all cohesive, that it matches from scene to scene, or that it can be juxtaposed against the previous scene to give a different feeling. It's they give the look and the feel of the whole thing. Beneath them, there are set designers. The set designers work with them on individual sets. So the production designer says, I've got an underground layer. I want you to design this and work on it. And so they work underneath them. Alongside of them is the construction foreman. So you have underneath the on the construction side, you have the construction foreman, then you have a bunch of carpenters. I don't know, any movie. I've seen 80 carpenters on a movie, even more sometimes. You have a lead set painter that also works with them. You have a lead plasterer that also works with them that has as well a bunch of people working below them. And I work in the sculpting department. So that's sort of under the production designer, the construction foreman, and then from there is like all the people that fabricate things below them. Other jobs that are available in it are under the construction, because you have carpenters, but you also have greensmen or greens people. And these are people who specifically plant things. They're sort of like the landscapers in the movie business, which I couldn't ever have imagined that that was a job, that there was someone there specifically would be in charge of all the plants or all the greenery or foliage on set. You have welders, you have an entire welding department that works in the construction department. You have set decorators who they come in after construction, and we've built a set that's a house. They're hanging the pictures. They are, selecting the lamps that need to go on the side tables. They're decorating the entire place. I have a list here so I wouldn't forget. Um, I think actually, yeah, welders, set decorators, prop, greens. Um, and that's it. So, like underneath all of these categories, you can have any number of people working on it. The job I'm on right now, I have 16 sculptors working on this job. Um, which is it's quite a hefty a hefty job for us. It's usually a lot smaller than that. So that's just sort of, an overview of what the construction department looks like. The other thing I would touch on, if, for those of you that are interested in getting in the movie industry, there is a union, or there are several unions in the movie business. So there are opportunities that are non-union, but there are, opportunities in a union for the movie, and there are differences between those two things. If there's just something you're like really interested in getting into, the way in the door is through a non-union fabrication shop. They have that the place that hired me to do this current job it's a non-union shop. And there's great opportunities there, and you can learn there, and meet people and try to get in the union. Um, some of I guess we'll go through some of um the jobs I've done are like the work I do mainly is on superhero movies, like I said. Moana 2 was one recently, Star Wars Mandalorian, several seasons of that. Um, I always say this wrong. Ahsoka Tana. Ahsoka, I have to say it wrong every single time. No idea. What else? Red Notice was one that I worked on, that we did some massive sets that looked like Egyptian pyramids, that we made in, south of Atlanta, Georgia, which is wild. Um, like Call of the Wild was another one. We did two massive sets for that. Ant-Man and Wasp, Captain Marvel, the list goes on. It's all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of, because I guess I should say our medium that we work in is foam. So we're, carving and sculpting in foam, and there's a lot of destruction and rubble and spaceships and underground layers, like I said, and that stuff is easily made out of foam. So what do I do? What do I do day to day? So I work with the production designer and the construction foreman, and they have plans that a set designer has created, and they are construction plans. So, you've got to learn, be able to read and, take measurements off the plans. There's a lot of geometry involved in what we're doing. Just to make sure things fit, and because we're building pieces that have to go with set pieces that other people are building. And if we're not building them to the same size, there could be some serious problems. So really my day is breaking down plans, trying to figure out the best way to create a set piece that, works functionally really well with whatever it is that the production side, the camera crew, and the actors, with what they need, to get it out of their way so they can shoot what they need, and then to be able to put it back into place. Um, Types of people who do really good in this role. So this work is, most people have a job that they are constantly going to. This is freelance work. So some years I think I've had 32 different jobs. Other years I've had three jobs. It really all depends. I've had jobs as short as 1 day long, and I've had jobs as long as 9 months. I never know until the phone rings, what it's going to be and how long it's going to be. So it's it's very much for creative minded people. Um, it it can be difficult because it can be one of those things that's feast or famine. Unless you're really dig in and are able to get a lot of work, it can be difficult to get into, which I think can keep people away from it. But I think it's worth it to pursue it because, I mean, it's so fun. If you have to have a job. It's a fun job to have, you know. And there are ways to hunt down the work. And that's really, with this sort of thing, you have to have the mindset that you're not going to sit and wait for someone to call you. You're going to find out who's doing the work, and you're going to show up at the shop, walk in there with your resume or whatever it is and say, this is, I want to do this. What do I have to do this? And you can find those opportunities because, they're out there, but they're not advertised. You're not going to find, in a on LinkedIn, or I don't know what else is jobs.com. I don't know what do they have now that says, we want a sculptor for a movie. So it's a very untraditional career path, really. And the other thing is, I guess I can back it up a little bit to talk about how I got into it, because I sort of explained, what I've done, but I moved to Los Angeles 21 years ago, and I needed work. And I really, the background that I had was in residential construction. I grew up working in construction in the summers during high school and in college. Um, And that's really what I knew for work. Uh I went to school for graphic design was my major, and I have a minor in art history, which is I always really loved art, so that really helped me out with this. So what I eventually ended up doing is sort of like the perfect blend between art and my background in construction. But when I first moved to Los Angeles, I needed work. I found a couple contractors who quickly became friends, and I was renovating houses for them in the Hollywood Hills. And I wasn't a permanent employee, and things would come up, and they knew I was looking to do set building, and I would get a job to do a fashion photo shoot, and I would go do that job, and it would be glamorous. We'd be on set. They would have catering. They would, they have all this stuff. They have, the music playing. It was like a total party. And we would finish that job, and I would go back, and I'd probably be demoing a bathroom or jackhammering a foundation. So, just to make money in between. And that's how I got into this was, I started to get my foot in the door, and eventually I was, building homes less and less, and building movie sets more and more. So that was sort of my focus with that. So the type of person that excels in this is you have to be pretty resilient. Um, and you have to be willing to take a chance, because it's not going to be, every job's going to come to an end. You don't know when the next one is. So you just have to be prepared to either, always have a way to make money in between. Um, let's see. What else was this on the list that I can talk about? And I guess where are we right now? We're almost okay. We're about a half an hour
Almost
in.
8. And
Is
I,
there
I think
any
honestly, like it's a good idea to have multiple streams of income, regardless what work you do, because in this economy, anything can disappear and you don't, you just, things
It
happen.
always
So,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
It's something that I've always done, that my wife has always done, and she's an actress and has made a career as an actress for 25 plus years. And she's always had something else she did, because you never know, when something's going to happen. And I do this. I have several things that I do. And 12
same.
years ago, when Uber came around, when it first started, I was driving for Uber, and I was building movie sets. And I was, it was whatever I needed to do to make some money.
Becky asks, do you usually work with the same crew on every set?
Okay, so the world I'm in now, the sculpting world, is a really small niche part of the movie industry. So there's a union, and I'm in the union, and there's only 85 of us in the union, in that specific union.
Wow, that is quite small.
It's the smallest union in the entire movie business. I think the Carpenters Union is 15,000 people, if that's any indication of how teeny this is. And so for that reason, yes, I'm pretty much working with the same. It's sort of a revolving group, and everyone's freelance. And so, we come and go, and someone will lead a job, and then they'll be working for you on the next one, when you're leading a job. So it's all of the people that are on the job right now, I've known all of them for at least 3 years anyways, if not 15. So yeah. Um, this is another question that you had given me. My favorite part of this job. My, I, okay. Some people, this is another thing about this job. Some people like getting up, going to work 9 to 5. They come home, they have their schedule, they can, plan everything. I work 12-hour days. It's pretty standard in the movie business. When you're building a movie set, you're working for 12 hours. I leave the house at 5:15, and I left early today to do this. But I'm usually right now, I'm not home till 7:15 p.m. So I'm gone, it's a big chunk of the day. But my favorite part of it is that, you know, this job I'm doing is probably going to last 3 weeks. You have a goal and you assemble a team and you go in and you're going in to execute and then leave. And that's something that it has, I think, more so than things on a larger time frame. When you work on things in this short time of a time frame and this intensity, you really have to work as a team. And I grew up playing sports, and I always loved the feeling of being on a team and having that group. And I think that's really what I love, being creative and making things, but I really like that feeling of, assembling and being part of a team.
I love that because I think also like if you haven't worked in corporate, you don't understand how like mind numbing it can be to like work on projects that never actually finish and that you're just
Yeah.
constantly like being, and to have like something you see through to completion is really
Yeah.
satisfying, you
The
know.
funny thing about that is, though, with the stuff that we make, yes, we do it and we do it to completion, but we know ultimately it's going in the trash, which is kind of a weird thing because, there's a finite time limit that they're going to keep it and use it for. So, you pour all of this energy into it and you just, okay, and you just have to say goodbye to it.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, there was another question that came in, but
Like
I
you
don't know
said,
where to
what's
see
your
that.
least favorite aspect of the job?
What's my least favorite aspect of the job? I will say my least favorite aspect of the job is that when I take a job, I don't get to see my wife very much.
We'll
And
make sure to tell her you said
yeah, and she's
that.
probably
Those are
gonna
good
hear me over
points.
there. But I'm really lucky because I have such a good support system when you're working hours, because we will go 12 hours a day for, 6, 7 days a week sometimes. And I'll say this, I don't mean to scare anyone, but my longest day I ever worked was 32 hours long. And that's in a row. I mean, I worked 32 hours straight and I crashed after that. Um, it's not healthy. So, yeah, it can be really difficult if you don't have a support system. And I'm lucky that, my wife is like, you need to eat good. You need to eat well. So, and she's very good about helping me do that while I'm working, because the hours they take a toll on you for sure.
And Patty, you talked a little bit about how you got into it and early on, having to balance with not so glamorous construction work.
Yeah.
But how did you kind of you also had a transition because you also did some acting in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And I imagine you had to network quite a bit, which maybe the union helped you with, but how did you do that? How did you go about networking when you first got started?
It's funny. I did start acting. That's how I ended up in the movie business in the first place, and I still do when I have the opportunity. But it that never helped me get to the union side of the construction thing. It 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 was a completely separate route, which you would think it could have, but it didn't. I found I really got into the union through sculptors that I had met doing jobs in non-union fabrication shops, and they were a part of the union who were picking up jobs, and they were like, "Oh wow, you should join." I said, "Well, I'd love to, but it's not that easy." I don't know if anyone knows about it, but joining unions, but our union, this is how difficult it is. You need 30 days in 2 years to be able to get in. 30 days of qualified work in 2 years to be able to get in. And the only way you can get qualified days is if everyone else in the union is working. They don't take they call it taking in a new permit. They don't take new permits until everyone's working. And so in a union as small as the one that I'm in, it can be pretty difficult to pretty extremely difficult to get in. Yeah. But that being said, there are ways if you start doing work as a set painter, you can go to the union hall and introduce yourself. They love to meet people who, are interested in being a part of the movie business in the union. You can get on a first name basis with them if you just walk in the door and say, "Hey, I'm set painting and I'm working on this and I'm working on that. I just want you to have me on the radar if, something comes up." And that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I
The
think we've been, meeting with so like the RE people are mostly like I think local 600, and
Okay.
so they, you know, and I always tell the class like if they ask you if you're interested in cameras, you say yes. Like if you go to a gaffer who's in the union and they ask if you're interested in gaffing,
You say
you say
yes.
yes. Like you never
Yeah,
like, oh, I
yeah,
want to be a director. No,
yeah,
you in that day you
yeah,
want to be a
yeah. You
gaffer.
say
You want to be a grip.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've done so many things. I'm in the sculptors union. I'm in the union as a set painter as well. And I'm in Screen Actors Guild. And I have other things. I have a side business as a handyman that I do because I built houses for many years, and people will call and I'll say, "Ah, I've got a couple weeks off from work." And I have friends that say, "Hey, come fix stuff in my house." I'm always trying to do something. And there's people that I work with who say, "Man, I wish I had more skills than what I do so I could make money." And I said, "Well, I only had them because I had to survive. I knew that the journey is it's a marathon and not a sprint. And there are times, we're now in a period where we're not making as much content as, Hollywood is not making as much content. There's a contraction in the amount of things that are being made, as opposed to even 2 years ago. And the last 10 years before that, there was a massive boom of content being made for streaming and all of that. But I know, as quick as it shows up, it can go away. So you have to be ready to transition. You can't, I don't think you can, I've never put all my eggs in one basket. I just have always needed other things to do. Plus, I like variety. That's the other thing. I get bored quickly. So I'm like, I like to change things up.
Sarah asks, what's your favorite kind of set to build?
My favorite kind of set to build, I would have to say, is probably spaceships because there's there's so much math involved for some reason, and I never thought I was good at math. Um, but I really like it because it's a it's a massive challenge. So a lot of the stuff that sculptors make, we make it out of foam, like I said. We make anything that carpenters can't easily make out of wood. So you're not going to make a spaceship out of wood. The compound curvatures that you see in extraterrestrial vehicles are it's just not easily made, out of wood. It's so much easier for us to do it. So, but sculpture is very interesting because every other form, every other craft is additive. You add wood, you add layers of paint, you add plaster, whatever it is you do. But sculpting is subtractive. So we start with massive blocks of foam, and you have to calculate everything. It's funny, I'll say it, but Michelangelo said sculpture is easy because you take away everything that isn't the piece, and then the piece remains. What you have remaining is your sculpture. And it's oddly true, as pretentious as it can sound. it's oddly true, but you have to, when you're cutting away pieces, you have to calculate everything you need to leave remaining inside the block of foam to give you what it is you need. So, instead of just adding things, you have to like work backwards into it. So it's a unique uh, craft in that regard.
When you say spaceships, do you mean mostly like exteriors or interiors?
Both. It really, it all depends on what was the last spaceship? What did we do a spaceship on? We did one on Black Adam. There was a beautiful spaceship that we did on Black Adam. Um, yeah, and it's just multiple compound curvatures that you have to work out before you cut from here to here through a block of foam that you're moving in different trajectories. And yeah, it's complicated, but challenging and fun.
Not to put you on the spot, but do you happen to have any photos of your builds
Let me see. I think I have
that
a
you could
video.
share?
I was thinking earlier, do I know how to screen share? I don't even know. I have several videos.
There's a
Nina, you
share button on
just
the
in my
bottom.
head.
See it?
Okay.
With the arrow.
Okay, let me see if I can give me just a moment. And
Yep.
if someone has a question, go right ahead while I'm looking this up.
Lisa asks, have you ever built anything for a stop motion project?
No, I haven't. That's yeah. Like I have friends that work in small scale like that do that sort of thing. But the things I do are, really large scale, and if not like pop art, where it's like I said, like a huge carrot or a massive soccer ball or a sneaker. Or one time we did a Lamborghini. I made a replica of a Lamborghini, and we covered it with glue and sand to look like a sand castle, like someone had made a Lamborghini
Oh,
sand
wow.
castle. Um,
Fascinating.
so
What
let
was
me,
that for Lamborghini?
it was probably 16 years ago, and I think it was for a commercial. I can't even remember what the
That
commercial.
sounds vaguely familiar.
Um, so let me share this to my computer and okay, okay, so open. So let me see. Share. I don't you can sharing is not turned on.
Oh, now it is. Hold on.
Okay.
So, Patty, do you have to build a portfolio or how do you, I know you said a lot of it is word of mouth and, these
Yeah.
non-union shops knowing who you are, but is it a good idea to have a portfolio or a website if
It's
you're
a fat.
interested in this?
So when I decided I really wanted to start ramping up this work that I did, I created a website. Um, and now your Instagram or whatever, your TikTok or whatever is perfectly fine. But at that point, I created a website with all my work to showcase because I started going on. There was and there still is a page on Facebook, and you guys are probably not on Facebook, but the people who will be hiring you are probably on Facebook. So, there's a page called I Need Art Department. And this was 15 years ago. And I put on a notification anytime someone posted something and I need art department, I would just send them a quick note and link my website and, as quickly as I could. And that really jump started when I was able to showcase, efficiently and quickly, and it was easy for them to navigate, that they got the gist of what I did very quickly. That's really what it is about timeliness, because this things move really, really fast. I'll get a call. Hey, we have a job. It's starting tomorrow. I need you here at 6 a.m. and I need you to find 12 sculptors. And then all of a sudden I'm on the phone calling everybody I know saying who's available. You know, this is where we got to go. This is where we got to do. Okay, so I'm doing my screen share. I'm almost there, I think. Okay. I don't know what that was. Okay, so let me see if I've got this straightened out. So I can share my desktop, right?
Yes.
So let me see. Wait, I can share this screen. Okay, here we go. I don't know. Okay, so now you can now see my screen. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm
Yep.
gonna try. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, this is a video. This is for a movie called Red Notice. I was talking about this that we built in, this was during COVID. They shut the movie down in March and they brought it back in August and they said, well, now we can't fly to the Middle East to shoot this where we were going to shoot it. So now we have to create all of it in Union City, Georgia.
Oh,
And
wow.
why don't you come out
Wow.
here and do this? So this is what we built. All of this all of this is foam. The pyramids are made of foam. The obelisk is made of foam. These sculptures are made of foam. There is a wooden structure behind here with plywood on it, but this is all um, it's and the foam by foam, you know, if you buy a television and you have the foam that breaks all apart and gets all over your house when you're taking
Mhm.
the TV out of the box, that's the kind of foam. It's called 1 pound foam or bead foam that we use. So believe it or not, that is the same material.
Wow.
So that is yeah, a huge set that was for a wedding or a it was like a dinner party wedding in the movie Red Notice with The Rock.
That's
Okay,
so cool,
now I'm
Patty.
back. So
Even
yeah,
I've
that's the
never
sort of
seen
thing.
that.
Yeah, it is funny. It's easier to show than to tell. I want to see if I have other things that I can share from here now that I'm hip to the
And now that you're sharing,
screen sharing.
Becky asked, how
Um,
much creative liberty do you have when designing sculptures and sets?
Okay, so the creative liberty, it all depends. Sometimes they will say, you know, we need something like this, go ahead, which is really very fun. But a lot of times it's our job to execute the vision of the production designer. So as far as it, you know, people go, "Oh, this is great. You know, you get to make art." I say, "Yeah, I do, but it's not my art. I'm executing and a part of, you know, someone else's vision." Um, I have some big photos from The Mandalorian. Let me see where those are. I had some photos of,
I
oh,
think
this is
Becky has a
actually,
Mandalorian background at the
oh,
moment.
this is I'll show you this. The movie The Santa Claus. Anyone seen the Santa Claus movies?
Yeah.
With Tim Allen. I'll show you something that we made. Okay, let me open this up. Okay, so I'll share this screen again.
Hmm. Oh, I remember
So
that.
that's a fireplace. Yeah, it was a fireplace that we made for yeah, for um the
The Santa Claus movie.
Santa Claus, yeah.
And what is that? 10 feet, 12 feet tall?
I think, yeah, it looks like it's probably 11 or so feet tall, I think, maybe 12 feet tall. Um, yeah, so this is the sort of stuff, you know, and they go over, then a plastering crew comes in and plasters over that, and then painters come in and the painters paint it up, and then set decoration comes in and they fill the room up with furniture. And it's 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 cool to see these things come to life. This is actually, let me see if I can share this too. This is anybody, if anyone is Star Wars, Star Wars fan. This is um let's see. This is another thing I built, which this is actually 16 feet tall.
Wow.
And it looks like it's made of steel.
Are
I
those
could
apple
you
boxes under it?
Those are apple boxes underneath it to, for the paint, because they're dripping wet paint like
Gotcha.
it was dirty. And this is the foot of I think they're called an at walker, or I don't I this is Star Wars. I don't know that much about Star Wars, but I have friends that I show this to, and they're like, "Oh my, they know exactly what this is." But this thing, you could pick it up with one hand and flip it over. I mean, that's how. So that's another part of what we do, is that, they need something like this that needs to look like it's steel. It needs to
Hmm.
look heavy. It needs to carry weight, but it needs to be mobile. They'll put chains on the top of it and then just hoist it up and get it out of the way.
Yeah, Becky says it's an at walker.
An at walker, yeah, that's I I'll show you. Oh, I can't show you what I'm working on now because I there's an NDA involved.
Yes, as
So,
usual. Is that
uh,
the Gaga thing that you're working on?
that's the Gaga thing and the Tiffany thing. Yeah. So, I'm trying to think. I thought I had another video of something that was this is. So we will make. Oh, I can show you this. This is cool. So you were talking about that they had a volume where you were.
Yeah,
Uh,
at Ari.
yeah. So this is Manhattan Beach Studios. They had a
Oh,
massive
MBS
volume.
Group. Yeah, MBS
Yeah,
owns
they
everything
had
now.
a yeah, they had a huge whole stage with a volume. This is downloading right now. And this was for Mandalorian, I think, or Ahsoka Tano,
Yeah, yeah. I
whatever it
know
is.
what I
Um,
watched it. I don't know how to say it either.
I can always get it wrong. And they had the volume set up, and we made some, big set pieces that went inside the volume. But this video will give you a good look at the volume and the set pieces inside. Um, because it's interesting how they will create the background and shoot actors and set pieces with the background up on the volume, which is, I mean, it's just incredible. Let me see. It's taking its time getting to me. Are there any other questions? Yeah. Trying to think if there's any other thing that I can, um, I guess so. We touched on it briefly about if these sort of things are something that you want to do for work, find out who's making these things. Um, find out who they are. Find out, look up local fabrication shops. Look up, if you look up, how do I get, you know, something, you know, set pieces built? Where do I get them? Set building shops, any of stuff, like any places like that are near you, and walk in the door, give them a call and say, I'm interested in this. How do I do this? How do I get involved? Because there's one thing, I mean, this is one thing that you learn I think I didn't learn when I was young. If you're excited about something, people are all, you can get other people excited. You know, if you walk in the door and someone's doing something and you're like, this is amazing. I want to do this. I want to be a part of this. That enthusiasm is, I mean, it's a massive part of, I think, of success, you know, is having that attitude. And I think that's
Absolutely
something,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, that I didn't know when I was younger. You're nervous. These people know they're already doing it. They must know everything about it. They must, but they've gone through the same journey that you have, you know. And if this is something any of you end up doing, we will have a similar journey. You know, I'm just at a different stage in it. And I could totally relate to someone walking in the door saying, "This is so cool. How do I do this?" Okay, so this is the volume. I'm gonna play this video. So this was just a screensaver that they had playing that they were testing while these pieces that are in front of us. They were we were installing these, I guess they're totems or something that we had made. And this might have been the first time that I saw a volume or the volume. And I couldn't believe it. It was
And is this
magnificent.
for The Mandalorian?
I believe this was for that other one, Ahsoka,
Gotcha.
or
Because I know like Mandalorian was one of the first shows ever shot fully in the volume, right?
yeah.
If I remember
But
correctly.
this was the same volume that they shot Mandalorian because I
Yeah.
worked on these projects back to back. It was like 1 week. I only realized because my paycheck was coming from one thing, and then the next week I got a check, and I said, "Why is this different?" And they said, "Oh, because we're on a different show." But it was the same. It was the same crew as everything just rolled over into it. So they
Gotcha.
had built all the Mandalorian sets here, and they left it up and used it to do um, the next show.
Efficient.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it, but it's incredible.
That is pretty cool.
Okay, so let me click out of all this. So yeah, that gives you like an idea of the sort of things that we're making out here.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah. I guess I
Yeah.
was I was putting together my thoughts on also, where set design and fabrication is going too. I think that's an important part of this. It's changed. It's changed a lot, even since I've been involved in it. Just because of things like the volume.
Right.
Um,
Right.
um, but my thoughts on where I see the movie industry going, I see a lot smaller budget productions and set design being less for most of the projects, less designing elaborate things that are fully built on stage and more taking existing locations and being creative about what you can do with them and making them, a usable, functional space that fits your story, because of for budgetary reasons, really. The huge budget movies, they still happen, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of much lower budget things, which forces you to be creative, which I think is a really good thing. It takes you to a different place of like figuring out, uh, you know, sourcing locations, materials and all of that, and getting creative about how to execute the vision.
Also, I think it's interesting, like if you looked at even just the cameras used from the past Oscar nominations this year, half of them were film, like old-fashioned film cameras, right? So here you have
Yeah,
this push towards virtual, this push towards digital, but you kind of have a
yeah,
throwback, from people who are trying, so I think the pendulum kind of swings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so like maybe
Yeah.
there will be more set than you think there will, just because people will be like, well, hey, I want to do film, and I want to do it on an actual set. So like,
Yeah.
like,
Well, I just worked on Spidey Noir. I
mm,
don't even know if it's out. I've not seen it yet. And the sets, it's all black and white, right? But the sets are the most brilliant colors. I mean, I walk into a set, this set that was a bar, it was green and pink. And I mean, these colors, because they were doing a lot of tests on how do these colors look in black and white? So behind the scene, before they even shot, they said, we want this place to look magnificent. What colors will read really well in black and white? So you walk in the set and it looks like crazy. I mean, colors are like, who would ever decide to paint something these colors together? And then you see it on film and it makes so much sense, something that you would never think about.
I guess the pop of color reads better in
Yeah.
black and white
And
than,
and because the tonal quality of each color is different. And even if you think it's just black and white, they read so much differently in black and white.
yep, yep.
They didn't just paint things black and white and call it a day. They
The whole world
yeah,
was black and white back
yeah, the
then.
world was in color, you know. The world was very colorful. So yeah.
Well, it makes me think of like frescoes. They find them and they're like all faded, but then when they do like the tests, they figure out, oh, this was like bright red and bright yellow, and
Yeah. Yeah. It
excuse
was
me,
all, based on what they used to make the paints, if the paints, retain the color or not.
definitely. Thoughts, questions? We've got 2 minutes if you have anything to ask. Becky says they used to use green lipstick instead of red for black and white films. Oh, I really? Because the green
I
showed
didn't
up
know
like
that.
that?
I'm not surprised to hear that. After seeing the sets on Spidey Noir that were
That's very
green.
cool. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Patty. This has been
Yeah.
wonderful. I
Thank you guys. Yeah.
learned a
Thank you for
lot
having me.
myself as well, so I
Yeah. It's
appreciate it.
like we were emailing, and it's an entire world that it's like any world, that like unless you're in it, it you have no idea what goes on inside of it. It's hard to crack. So I'm happy to certainly share.
Thank you. Patty was emailing about like what should I talk, and I'm like, I don't even think I know enough about what you do to tell you what to talk
Where to
about.
start?
But like, here's
Yeah,
the general gist of what we want to get
yeah.
across.